Time in my life when I could organize myself. But then there came a time where I was just so busy putting out the work.
In this video, we explore the powerful and transformative story of Joyce Meyer, a globally renowned Christian author and speaker. Behind her, success lies a deeply personal and painful past. Raised in a dysfunctional home, Joyce endured years of sexual abuse at the hands of her father, a World War II veteran, and emotional neglect from her mother. Despite these tragic circumstances, she found faith, healing, and a new purpose. Join us as we dive into her journey from pain to power and how these experiences shaped her life, ministry, and message of hope for millions. The early years, a childhood marked by trauma. Joyce Meyer, born Pauline Joyce Hutchison on June 4, 1943, in St. Louis, Missouri, grew up in a household defined by deep dysfunction and emotional pain. Her father, a veteran of World War II, returned from the war not only with physical scars, but with a damaged psyche, manifesting into destructive behaviour. For years, Joyce endured horrific sexual abuse at the hands of her father, an experience that robbed her of the innocence and security that every child deserves. The home, meant to be a place of refuge, became a prison of fear and shame for her, where she learned early that the person she should trust the most was the very one causing her harm. In countless interviews, sermons, and books, Joyce has opened up about the unimaginable trauma she suffered. She describes how the sexual abuse made her feel powerless and deeply unworthy, leaving her with emotional scars that would take years to heal. As a child, she found herself not only physically violated, but also emotionally shattered. The daily dread she faced at home was compounded by the fact that the abuse continued unchecked, with no intervention from those around her. The emotional void left by her mother. As if the sexual abuse from her father wasn't enough, Joyce's mother contributed to her emotional suffering through silence and neglect. Although her mother was fully aware of what was happening, she did not intervene, choosing instead to ignore the situation. Joyce's mother's inaction only deepened her sense of betrayal and abandonment as she yearned for protection and comfort from the one woman who could have stopped her father's abuse. The void left by her mother's neglect was profound. It sent the message that Joyce was not worthy of love, safety, or protection, further exacerbating the emotional damage her father's abuse inflicted. For many children, a mother's love is the bedrock of their emotional well-being, offering the assurance of unconditional support. In Joyce's case, her mother's failure to act reinforced the idea that her worth was tied to the abuse she endured. The trauma was twofold: the violation of trust by her father and the rejection of emotional support from her mother. This emotional vacuum created a festering wound that would influence her for years to come, undermining her ability to feel secure and valued. Living with the aftermath, struggles with shame and self-worth. The years of sexual abuse and emotional neglect left Joyce grappling with an overwhelming sense of shame. This is a common response to childhood sexual abuse, as victims often internalize the guilt and responsibility for their own suffering. Joyce, too, carried this weight, feeling as though she was somehow to blame for the horrors she had endured. These feelings of shame and guilt left her with a fractured sense of self-worth, a burden that stayed with her well into adulthood. For many survivors, the trauma of childhood abuse can lead to self-destructive behaviours, and Joyce was no exception. She struggled with intense feelings of anger and bitterness, often lashing out at those closest to her, especially in her relationships. Her inability to trust, compounded by years of emotional neglect, caused her to be defensive and controlling as she attempted to safeguard herself from further hurt. This pattern of behaviour, rooted in her unresolved trauma, made it difficult for her to form healthy, trusting relationships. One of the clearest manifestations of this emotional turmoil was in her first marriage. At the young age of 18, Joyce married David Meyer, a part-time car salesman, seeking stability and security. However, the emotional baggage she carried from her traumatic childhood weighed heavily on their relationship. Joyce's inner turmoil, marked by feelings of inadequacy and mistrust, made it difficult for her to engage in open, honest communication with her husband. Their marriage was tumultuous, with Joyce often vacillating between anger and withdrawal. Faith as a lifeline. The turning point. The turning point in Joyce's life came when she began to deepen her relationship with God. Although she had been raised in a Christian home and had some understanding of religious teachings, her connection to faith had never been personal or transformative until she was older. It wasn't until she hit a breaking point in her emotional and personal life that she turned fully to God, seeking solace and direction. Joyce describes this spiritual awakening as the moment when she finally began to address the deep-seated emotional wounds from her past. Through prayer, studying the Bible, and seeking guidance from Christian mentors, she started to confront the pain that had shaped her entire life. She came to realize that the root of her destructive behaviors and attitudes was the unresolved trauma of her childhood. By surrendering her control and trusting in God, she slowly began the journey toward healing and emotional wholeness. As her relationship with God deepened, so did her relationship with her husband. Joyce's faith not only helped her address her emotional wounds, but also transformed her marriage. Where once there had been bitterness and anger, Joyce began to cultivate healthier patterns of communication and emotional connection. She learned to let go of her need for control, trusting God to guide her marriage, and in turn, her marriage became a source of strength and support. This period of personal transformation marked the beginning of Joyce Meyer's calling to ministry. Having experienced the power of God's healing in her own life, she felt compelled to share her story with others who were struggling with similar pain. She believed that God had healed her so that she could help others find the same healing through faith. Stepping into ministry, a mission to heal others. In 1976, Joyce Meyer took her first steps toward ministry. She began by teaching small Bible study classes in local cafes and churches, drawing from her own experiences of emotional healing and faith. Her early teachings were practical and accessible, focusing on how to apply biblical principles to real-life situations. People were drawn to her straightforward, no-nonsense approach, which set her apart from many other religious leaders at the time. What made Joyce's message resonate so deeply with others was her authenticity. She did not shy away from sharing the painful details of her past, using her testimony as a way to connect with others who had experienced similar traumas. Her personal story of overcoming abuse and emotional scars gave her a unique platform to speak about healing, and people were moved by her ability to relate to their struggles. One of the central themes of Joyce's early ministry was the importance of emotional and spiritual healing. She believed that many people were living in bondage to their past traumas and negative thought patterns, and she used her platform to encourage them to find freedom through faith in Christ. Her teachings emphasized that, through God's grace, people could overcome their pasts and live fulfilling, joyful lives. The formation of Joyce Meyer Ministries. By 1985, Joyce had spent nearly a decade teaching Bible classes and building a local following. Her passion for sharing the message of God's love and healing had grown into a full-fledged calling, and she took the bold step of founding her own organization, Joyce Meyer Ministries. With the help of her husband Dave, she expanded her outreach, hosting conferences, speaking engagements, and publishing Christian materials. The early years of Joyce Meyer Ministries were marked by hard work and determination. Joyce and Dave worked tirelessly to spread the ministry's message of hope and healing, often facing financial challenges and logistical obstacles. However, their perseverance paid off, and Joyce's unique approach to ministry continued to attract a growing audience. Joyce Meyer Ministries became known for its focus on practical Christian living. Joyce's teachings, which centered on overcoming fear, emotional healing, and finding peace in everyday life, struck a chord with individuals seeking real change. Her ability to make biblical principles accessible and relatable to everyday struggles resonated with people from all walks of life. The launch of Enjoying Everyday Life. A major milestone in Joyce Meyer's ministry came in 1993 with the launch of her television program, Enjoying Everyday Life. The show, which quickly became one of the most successful Christian programs worldwide, continued Joyce's mission to bring practical, faith-based teachings to a wider audience. On Enjoying Everyday Life, Joyce shares biblical teachings, personal stories, and practical advice on how to live out one's faith in everyday situations. The show's title reflects Joyce's belief that faith should not only be a part of one's life, but should enhance the enjoyment of daily experiences. She emphasizes that through a relationship with God, people can find joy, peace, and fulfillment even amid life's challenges. The success of Enjoying Everyday Life allowed Joyce to reach millions of viewers across the globe. The show is now broadcast in over 100 languages and available in countries around the world, making Joyce Meyer one of the most influential Christian teachers of her time. A global ministry, expanding the reach. As Enjoying Everyday Life grew in popularity, so did the reach of Joyce Meyer Ministries. Today, the ministry operates in multiple countries and supports various charitable initiatives, including providing clean water, disaster relief, and food programs for impoverished communities. Joyce's message of faith, hope, and healing has become a beacon for people in need, and her ministry has grown into a global organization dedicated to making a